Welcome to Driftwood Conversations. I'm Hillary Sloan. My guest today is Claudia Thompson, a woman whose life has been woven like a tapestry of threads from art, fashion, film, music, love, loss, and healing. Claudia has walked through New York's fashion world in the 1970s, earned an Emmy in Hollywood for makeup, and built a pioneering career as a lunar astrologer. Along the way, she's asked the questions many of us carry quietly. Who am I really meant to be? What is worth living as a legacy? And how do we learn to love ourselves fully? Our conversation moves between stories of chance encounters, moments of heartbreak, and her discovery that the moon in the heart and self-love can be guides through all of it. Was it faith, soul, or love that led Claudia from one chapter to the next? Perhaps all three. Hello, Claudia.
Alrighty, well, I'm Claudia Thompson. I'm delighted to be here. Currently, I'm a lunar astrologer, and I also work with something called celestial beauty, which is an outgrowth of my time in Hollywood. So I say that my journey has taken me from Hollywood to the moon. That was the second half of my life.
That sounds great. We're going to go into that in depth. You said lunar beauty. What is that?
Celestial beauty.
Celestial.
The umbrella for what I do currently is called moon-powered living. And so under that umbrella is astrology, lunar astrology, celestial beauty, which will be the next thing that I bring out. I started putting this together in 1995, so it's been coming a long time. It's the idea of celebrating the fact that we are uniquely beautiful, each of us, by divine design. And it's time to stop looking at that we're not enough or that we're not beautiful by some cultural comparison terms, but that we can enjoy the goddess or God in all of us and celebrate it right where we are. And the basis for that is sacred self-care, which is so relevant in these times of a challenged immune system of ourselves and the planet. So it brings a lot of things into play. But it's bringing the behind-the-scenes secrets that I learned in Hollywood and that have evolved since then and combining them with the behind-the-scenes secrets of the stars in the heavens and bringing that all together.
God, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. That's the thing. So people can do anything from personal with me. You know, I know one of the things I did recently with a client was I took her shopping. We went shopping and we got healthy beauty, because she wasn't aware of ingredients. So we put together some program for her of healthy beauty and looked at how to help her put her brand and her light forward. 2 classes, 2 readings, it's evolving. It's still evolving. I have a variety of offerings on my website, which is in the process of being completed. And I have lunar discovery readings, which tell you what the moon means for you personally and how to use it and how it impacts your health, your relationships, etc. And then a full astrology reading, which is one of the best ways to know yourself and get the right timing for everything, because that's what astrology and particularly the moon really provides, the right timing for everything. And whether it's business, beauty, and rejuvenation. And then I'll be offering new and full moon updates, which are like a little, not little, they can be very meaty, but a text or an email that tells you at every new and full moon what that means for you personally, how to use it, how to celebrate it, and play into the energies, harness the energies of the universe for your own use and joy. And then celestial beauty, which is putting the beauty energetic so you step out and shine in this time, share your gifts, and celebrate yourself. And then I also offer visioning work, which is a process that I go through with people, and I've had really good success in business with people doing this. But it's 12 steps of visioning 12 areas of your life, and then working it out in a program that can go quarterly.
That sounds great. Now, let's back up for a minute. Where were you born? What did you do before you got into this?
I was born in Omaha, Nebraska. And I was born to 2 psychologists. My parents were psychologists, so that's sort of in my DNA in the work that I do. And I lived, I was just a normal child, very bright parents, so they, introduced me to a lot of things. And then we moved from Omaha to Jacksonville, Florida, And my mother used to say, I don't know how you ever lived without an ocean. And I don't either, although I'm living in the desert right now. And so we were living in Jacksonville, Florida, and then I went to college. I started out at Stevens in Columbia, Missouri, a really good girls' school, and then matriculated to Washington University, and then to Webster College, which contained the Loretto Hilton Repertory Theater. So I went from like a double major in music and art into fashion design and costume design. I went on the road for a while singing, and then I went back to cosmetology school. I thought, kiddo, you got to make a living, you know. You're very well educated, but to what end? And so then I moved into working in a salon and doing different photo shoots and exploring all the different mediums until I moved to Atlanta, where the movie industry had taken hold. And then from there, I moved to Hollywood in my early 30s. I realized when I was in Atlanta that I really missed California, and particularly the Bay Area. I love the San Francisco area. And so I moved to a small town. I had a friend who was going to Hawaii with her husband. She was a teacher, and so during the summer they took this trip, and she said, come house sit. And I had, which we mentioned before, I had been hit in a three-car pileup, and I had a broken back. So my roommate got me on a plane, drove me to this sweet little town in California, and I healed, which many people go there to heal. It's surrounded on three sides by water. I didn't know quite why I was there, but it turned out that after years of, since I was 22 years of age, I'd been studying and practicing astrology, that the moon was calling me. There were gardeners there who gardened to the rhythms of the moon, and they published a tide guide on the Point Reyes seashore, and that fishermen, etc., followed. So I was drawn toward the moon, and a friend of mine who was very much into the internet, which I don't claim to be a techie. I know enough to get along, but that's about it. But she was like, there's nothing on the internet about the moon. Every 6 months she'd call me. And I was like, yeah, so what? And so 18 months in, she called me, and by that time, a friend of mine who was an herbalist had asked me to join her for a radio show. And I said, so you want me to talk about beauty from the inside out, or what would you? She said, no, I want you to talk about the moon. So then my friend called me, and she said, well, then let's do something about the moon. And we created the first website on the internet that was about the moon other than NASA. It's called moonsurfing.com. So that was my journey, and then I
Is that still up?
I've gone through iterations, through reincarnation. So moonsurfing is no longer up. That became reachforthemoon.com, and now it's moon-powered, which it has been for many years now. Moon-powered astrology, which is going to be under the umbrella of moon-powered living.
What got you to the desert?
Well, I find that places kind of spit you out when you're meant to go. And I tried to continue living in Marin County, which is one of the most expensive places to live in the country, if not the. At that time, I think it was the most expensive. I just couldn't find a place to land after my previous home had disappeared. My landlady was getting older, and her children thought that she needed a caregiver rather than a roommate. So the friend that originally brought me to Northern California when my back was compromised had moved to Palm Desert. And so she said, why don't you come for Christmas? So I came down to the desert for Christmas, and we had fun. It was just fun. And it was quite a lot less expensive at that time than Northern California or any place else. It was like a third, which that has changed, but that's what it was. And they just built the Civic Center in Cathedral City. So the Mary Pickford Theater was there, and we went to the McCallum and some galleries. My friend was and still is an artist. And I went, this is just fun. And she said, yeah, that's what life ought to be about. So I moved. And that brought me to the desert. I never thought I would be here from 2000 to 2025, but here I am.
But you moved up to the high desert, which is a very different place.
Yes. I had sold my house in Cathedral City, and I was on the road looking for my next place, which at first I thought would be Tucson. And as I mentioned earlier, Tucson just didn't land. It didn't work out. And then a friend said, come visit me in San Diego over the summer. I thought, oh, I love this area. Okay. That didn't work out either. And I came to Morongo, came back to the desert to visit friends that I had in Yucca. And by that time, which this is a whole other story, but I was on Kauai the morning after Fukushima. And I had begun a battle with nuclear radiation. And so when I came back to the lower desert, it sort of went underground for about 4 years. But then during this time, selling a home and traveling, living, basically with the things in your car while you stay with other people can be very stressful.
So what went underground? You mean the illness?
The radiation went underground.
The radiation
and
poison.
Then it returned. And I happened to be staying with a friend in Yucca. She said, you have to find a place. And season was about to begin. It was September. And I thought, yeah, you're going to have a heck of a time finding a place if you don't do it now. So I landed in Morongo, where I had a couple of friends, and then realized that I was here to go through a massive healing crisis, which I did. And now I love the high desert. I can't imagine living. I like going down to the low desert. It's like going into town, But I love living up here and meeting people like yourself. And, there's a whole world up here and a very healing vibration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very incredible place.
And you can see the night sky.
Yes. Which you couldn't.
Not anymore. That's changed down there.
Yeah, it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
So interesting. Now you're up here.
Yes.
How long has that been?
Since 2018.
Okay.
So 7 years.
And you're building a new business or not?
I took 2 years off. I had a YouTube channel, and my program is called Tune Into the Moon under Moon Powered Astrology. And the videos are still up. But one day I realized I wanted interaction like this. I didn't want to just be somebody looking at a screen by myself. And so I just got up that morning and walked away from it, saying, okay, so 6 months to a year, you'll give yourself 6 months to a year. Well, it turned out to be almost 2 years and a lot of introspection. And I kept hearing, you're not far enough out of the old box. And I would get an idea, they'd say, you're not far enough out of the old box. And so now, finally, I am under the same brand, but actually Moon Powered Living is a little different. It's an umbrella for other things. And so I'm really looking at letting my voice be heard more, being on the air, collaborating with people, just having a different structure.
When you say you heard, what do you mean by that?
My guidance is very strong, and it has shifted over the years. Sometimes I've had big, tall guides, and other times I don't even get a visual on them, but my inner voice has been very strong since I was a child. Undoubtedly, it's saved my life many, many times. But I have learned more and more to listen, and that's one of the reasons that my sabbatical was 2 years, because I had to have some knocks on the head to get me to just, I said, okay, I'm turning this all over. Maybe I'm not meant to do astrology anymore. You show me. And I heard, well, the first assignment is to deeply listen. Get still. Stop rushing. There's nowhere to get to. Just allow this time. And then I realized that every career transition I made in my life has required these times of a year to 2 years, sometimes more, of just being still and allowing my guidance to get through, And then the next thing was, what do you enjoy? That's your next assignment. What's fun for you? Because that's what you kind of lost touch with. So that's your assignment. Simple. Well, I enjoy interfacing with other people, learning about other people, and things that I'm doing now, and things are beginning to, take shape. You're an example of that, It's just, you can see by the smile on my face. Now it's a fun journey again, And I just want to celebrate life every day, because what I went through with the nuclear radiation was very close to dying, and so every day is a reason to celebrate. Every day that I'm upright and breathing and purpose pulled.
So, there's a question. I'm listening to you, and I'm completely on board with what you're saying. But if somebody's listening to this without the experiences we've had, they're going to say, if you're listening to your guidance, why didn't your guidance tell you to not be in Hawaii? Why didn't your guidance keep you away from the car wreck or the car accident? What would you say?
First of all, I would say that sometimes I don't listen enough. One of the things that I really have practiced, particularly since 2012, is dropping into and breathing from my heart. When I do that, I'm safe and I'm very, very expertly guided. But it is a continual moment-to-moment practice where the vibratory field drops into my heart and my frequency rises to have open ears, inner and outer, so to speak. I'm very Uranian, and those who are listening who know the names of the planets will know that Uranus it's a planet that creates sudden changes, upsets, earthquakes, etc.
That was really interesting. So I want to go back and make sure we really go into it before you get into the beauty aspect of your work or the celestial beauty. You were talking about not hearing sometimes and really understanding that you have to work to really hear. Let's say more about that.
A big word to me is surrender. And I feel, at least I've been taught, to endure, to power through, to have goals, to be purpose-driven, which I think you heard earlier I used the phrase purpose-pulled. I have no desire to be purpose-driven anymore or to be driven by anything. I think a philosophy over years has developed in me to recognize that control is a huge illusion, control over anything, no matter what you do. Every moment is a gift. You're here by divine sustenance. I'm here by divine sustenance. The more I listen, and I've had this voice that's been strong since I was born, so sometimes it's such second nature that I don't heed. It's usually, they call it the still small voice for a reason. It's not a voice that screams at you generally. It's a still, loving voice that basically suggests. It's kind of like if you say, I'd rather do it myself, your guidance says, yeah, okay, you go for it. You know, you're infinite, so you can do this again and again or whatever. And I have found over the years that by listening and allowing whatever my process is, and that's a huge one. Self-acceptance is a huge one. Because rather than saying, why did I draw this to myself? Why did I do this? Why wasn't I listening? Rather than saying, what's the gift in this? What's the blessing? And then, after finding that, is this something that is meant to be shared? Or is this simply part of my unique polishing of my facet of the diamond called humanity? And I found, and so I've extracted over this recent time what could possibly be of use. But rather than me going into a mental process and saying, what could be of use? How can it benefit other people? I'm now in this place where I just allow Spirit to bring the people to me that show me in spades, well, here, does this look like fun? Does this look like celebration? Well, if you're holding that vibration in a chaotic, kind of crazy, somewhat sober time, that's of use. Just be you. Nobody else can do you but you, right? So it's been a life of learning. I've had a lot of friends that have left the planet, but I'm still here. So I know that I'm still learning and growing. I'm just so grateful. I call them my beloveds of the light, my higher self, that voice, those voices. And it's only when I allow myself to breathe, and I meditate before I get out of bed, because my mind can take over so fast. So I go into the space of nothingness, nowhere to get to, being nobody, being nothing and everything all at the same time, so to speak. That, over the years, has shifted my day so that I listen. I start, while I'm still in bed, I start with gratitude also, that I move into gratitude. Gratitude for my body, for my life, for my home, for my friends, for whatever. Because gratitude is alchemical. It breeds more things to be grateful for. So then I move my joints, I stretch, I get out of bed and I stretch, and I ground myself. And I have a lot of air in my chart, as people who understand the elements of astrology might say. So I have a very active mind, and my guides help ground me. The things that I know I need to do help ground me. Self-acceptance, which is a huge one for me, rather than finding ways to get a gold star for beating myself up, And I feel that we're really trained well in that in this culture, that we're really trained to judge ourselves, and judgment closes the heart. So that's a big thing of mine. Keep the heart open. When I speak with someone, it's like, am I breathing in and out of my heart? Am I looking at you through my heart? Or am I up here? Because your voice comes through, your inner voice can get through much more effectively if you're in your heart. Because it's safe and you become kind of quiet. And then you get the words. You get the guidance, and so it took me a while this last time when I walked away from the YouTube to just surrender, to go, it's okay, and to go, and if it's a year, if it's 2 years, whatever it is, let it be, just let it be. And what's happening is it's kind of like I'm in loving legacy, where a lot of the things I've explored are coming together now. It's like a thread being woven through this part of my tapestry of life, but it's different. It's like there's a magazine coming out called Dubravanol. Joshua Tree Dubravanol is the name for Joshua Tree. So I'm writing a column for that. Well, I wrote years ago, so that's come back around in a fun way with a fun group of people. Being here with you, this was very serendipitous, the way that we met and decided to do this. And it's just when you listen and just allow your life to show you, it's so much easier. It's really maximum efficiency of your energy.
Tell me the difference between, say, normal astrology and the moon astrology that you're doing.
Okay. So lunar astrology, I call it that because my doorway to everyone's universe and to the universe is the moon. We were conceived, birthed, and moved through the cycles of our life according to the relationship between the moon, the sun, and the earth. Those establish what's called lunar rhythms, and everything that we see on the planet manifest in nature and in our lives is by virtue of these rhythms. It's an unerring clock and calendar. Between the sun and the moon, you've got an unerring clock and calendar. And so when you tune into these, we kind of lost touch with that. I certainly had. I was out in the universe playing with Pluto and Saturn and all the planets for years and years. And then I realized that the moon actually dances with every planet as it goes through a sign. And I thought, if the earth knows how to manifest the seasons and this incredible, marvelous, magnificent beauty that we see all around us, right on time, unerringly, what if humans could tap into that and use it as the right timing for everything in their own lives, and also harness the emotional roller coaster that the moon can often represent for people, to use their feelings to create, because facts don't create. That's a really shocking phrase if people roll it over, because we're taught knowledge is facts. If you have enough facts, but actually we create from our feelings. So how do we move into not being at cross purposes with our feelings? And then beyond that, there are positions in lunar astrology that people don't talk about astrology. Now, more and more people are looking at the phase of the moon they're born into. But I spent years with clients who never knew the phase they were born in, astrologers who never looked at the phase of the moon they were born into. They now know that the subconscious, they say, is 95% of our operating system. Well, the moon represents the subconscious. Then you move into things like pre-birth eclipses. So the solar eclipse that occurred 6 months before you were born tells you what you agreed to come and give. And the moon, the lunar eclipse prior to your birth, says, well, if I come to give this, then I get to learn this. So this is a real simplification. The lunar nodes are destiny points. What's the comfort couch from my past that I tend to sit on that prevents me from moving forward, where I go for comfort? And North Node says this is what you're being asked, and collectively we're being asked to move toward. So these are positions that really answer those bigger questions of life, of what am I here for? And how can I use these energies? Not simply, this is squaring this and this is sextiling this, and isn't that all interesting? But how can I harness these energies and use them for my greatest joy and my highest good? How can I do that? And for me, that doorway is the moon. And you can understand it very simply. We'll just start with the 8 phases. And you can start to learn the keywords and notice moonrise and moonset. We're all enchanted by the moon. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't go out under a full moon or a crescent moon and go, wow, look, yes. But it's also stirring something literally cellularly, because you're 70% or more water. You are a tidal being. So, and then when you look at transits, when you get into the system that I call lunar astrology, which is a more advanced explication, if a planetary transit is moving away from its conjunction, where it meets with something in your chart, whether it's the sun or another position in your chart, as it moves away, when it gets to a first quarter or a gibbous phase, one of these phases, again, these keywords can apply. Oh, this is the time for me to take action on what began maybe 12 years ago. Maybe, so there's a timing that can be laid on top of the traditional aspects that we understand in astrology that says, personally, because the moon is very personal, do this. So the sun represents spirit, the moon is soul, and you can look at the ascendant as your perspective from Earth, your cosmic mask in life. And it simplifies it. Believe it or not, with everything I've just said, it does simplify it.
So how would someone know the moon that they have? How does it come up? Do you do it in the chart?
Yes. You can run a chart, and people can, you'll find shareware, et cetera. Of course, if you want to get a reading, that's another thing. But, you run your chart, and you'll see where the sun is, where the moon is. The angle between those two tells you if you're born in a waxing or a waning phase. I have a template called Moon Phases at a Glance, and if someone gets in touch with me or signs up for my email list, they get, that's one of the things they get, is so they can start to play with the moon and follow it really simply. So when they look up in the sky and see it growing in one direction or darkening in that direction, they know what the energy is. Many people, like there's a phase that it's the waning crescent, but it's known as the balsamic phase. We move into the depth of the dark before a new moon. And many people are tired. You and I met not too long ago under a balsamic moon phase. And we talked a lot about why many people are feeling tired now. And then when I got home, I went, duh, Claudia, it's the balsamic phase of the moon. Light equals energy. There's no energy for over half, for half the night. There's no energy coming from the moon being reflected from the sun. And if we lived in a more ancient culture that followed these things, that didn't have all the devices we have, we would be looking at those rhythms and going, oh, it's time to move inward.
So I have a question that's a little off, but I was born 6 weeks early. How does that affect your astrology, or does it?
I was born 5 days late. Now, one thing you can do is go back to rebirthing. Have you ever heard of that process?
Yes,
Leonard
I've done
Orr.
it.
And so that gives you insights right there. The agreements that you were making, it's like, why you were in a hurry, why you wanted those coordinates, so to speak. But it definitely, of course, puts you in a different phase of the moon.
It does.
Had I been born when I was originally supposed to be born, I would have been born in the balsamic phase of the moon. So we ought to go into that a little bit at some other time, because when you run the other date and you find it, oftentimes it's really revelatory. It's like, yeah, I do feel that. But yet I also have to deal with the fact that in my case, I'm born under a crescent moon. So I did experience the things that a crescent phase baby experiences, but I also have the balsamic phase mandates. So it's interesting. And I know why I didn't decide to, that I just kind of stayed there in comfort going, oh, this is nice. And so, why were you, in a rush to get here, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm still like that.
And the moon it's one of the positions that can give you some insights into that. It's kind of fun and interesting. One more layer, right? One more of the onion.
Very interesting. How are you perceiving the time we're in right now?
New, brand new, fresh start, a lot of detritus, a lot of debris, an old reality that many of us have known wasn't working, want to create a new one, and literally the planets, the universe is supporting us. I feel that we live in a pool of infinite consciousness. And the planets reflect that. The planets out there reflect what is being called for within each of us. We're each a universe, or many universes. And so when you start to look at the fact that all the outer planets that affect the collective vibration are all moving in an unprecedented way. They're moving out of the element of water and earth, the two elements of water and earth, into fire and air. In September, I believe it's September, October, November, December, they move back. They start to back up out of their new positions, which currently we have Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and also Saturn, having moved to between 0 and 2 degrees of Aries, Gemini, and Aquarius. And this 0 degrees is a degree of initiation. It's called the creator degree, especially when it's in Aries. So we're going to have these planets move seemingly backwards. The universe never moves backwards, but it's called retrograde when they're in a certain position, relationship to the Earth. And so as they seemingly back up, the energies of a retrograde become internalized. So we're being asked to look at the curriculum that we went through, the experiences, the wisdom that we gained during the time that those planets were traveling through those signs. And then, as the dawn of 2026 comes, these planets will be moving forward. And by February, the end of February, I believe it's February 26th, that they are all locked in, so to speak, into their new positions in air and fire, which is consciousness and spirit, to put it very briefly. So we're in a time of incredible creation, upticking. Pluto in Aquarius talks about power to the people, which implies incredible personal responsibility. Aries talks about sovereignty and the responsibility that we bear for being sovereign. It's not just about a monarchical construct that lords it over everybody. That's what's being left behind. Gemini, we're going to see incredible advances in technology. In consciousness, we are reminded that the way we think, the way we use our consciousness, will create the next world that's coming. Who is our tribe? That's Aquarius energy. How do we get along? How do we manifest our individual gifts? Aries, while honoring other people's gifts and coming into cooperative conscious community. Media, Gemini rules the media, and with Uranus there, ruling electricity and sudden change and ahas and earthquakes, we have to be really, really careful of being programmed and take responsibility for programming ourselves with the highest vision and looking at how we can accept ourselves more and have compassion and not go into judgment, but to work with discernment. And this is a 20-year transit of Pluto. So it's going to be unfolding, but things are moving very fast, especially in the technological realms. So Aquarius is the sign that has to do with the internet. We're going to see a lot of things from possibly cyber attacks. We know there's seismic activity going on. The Earth herself, Gaia, is rebirthing. We may have some new land coming up on the planet.
I've heard that.
Yeah. So
I've been hearing that.
We're one of the things that's been predicted is free energy, because we will be working with magnetics. A lot of the Tesla information is back. So, or being looked at in a new way of applying it for the first time. So when we say these things, we can say them easily, but when you talk about free energy, we know that there are an awful lot of energies that aren't on that bandwagon, that want to keep the old systems in place, because it's about that idea that power is an external, top-down, linked to authority concept, as opposed to, no, power is inherent. So we are in a time of radical revolution and evolution, and the responsibility lies within each of us. We were talking earlier about polarization, that it's really, the media, the energies have been ramped up to get you to pick a side. Pick a side and vilify whoever is not on your side. Well, that's a lower vibration, a lower frequency, and it does create a reality, but is that the one you want to be part of? And if it's not, then you rise above the white hat, black hat theory into, oh, there are no white or black hats. There's nothing out there coming to save me. I'm a creator. It's up to me. Not in a psychotic sense, of course, but and the word responsibility is an interesting one, because it means the ability to respond. It doesn't mean I control everything, I have to take care of everybody and everything. No, it says I practice sacred self-care. I align my consciousness, my attitude, my daily chop wood, carry water regimen with the world that I want to live in, that is for the highest good and greatest joy of everybody and everything. That's my perspective. That's my wish. And we have these outer planets. And we also have dwarf planets now coming in. Just the other day, I heard that there was a dark energy camera from NASA, took a picture of a dwarf planet that has a 25,000-year orbit. That is an expansion of consciousness that is a quantum leap. And so we are in a quantum leap of consciousness where we express our own unique divinity while recognizing that there's only one of us here. And that's quite a concept to bite off. But we are being told to get on with it. Create the world you want by beaming it, living it, being a lighthouse on your own path, and then for others.
There's a concept I've always believed or felt, more felt, is that we're also one life. So yes, all we can deal with is the individual and do our work. But the more we do that, the higher our vibration and our frequency, then we know that we're connected to everything, to every rock, to the moon, to every person walking around. I mean, that when you begin to understand that, how could there be white or black hats, good or bad people? Whatever you're holding, good and bad, or positive and negative, so am I. It just, what do I want to give my attention to? What do I want to give my time to? Where am I willing to step up and say, hey, Hillary, no, stop it.
Yeah.
Go take a break. Time out.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I used to do this exercise when I was living in Atlanta, and I'd have a date, and I'd be getting ready. And my monkey mind would just be going crazy, Oh, well, look at you. Just whatever. And I would go to the refrigerator, and I would, metaphorically, I would take that little voice, and I would open the freezer, and I would put it in the freezer, that bit of consciousness, and I go, here you go, you chill out. You're going to stay right there. Maybe I'll let you out again. Maybe I never will. But because look at what joy, like walking that way in the world, what joy that must bring you, a lot of joy, to walk seeing that with other people where you're just open. Mm-hmm. It's like that phrase, seeing the Buddha or the Christ in everyone, seeing the light in everyone, and knowing on some level it's all us.
Right.
We are together walking across a bridge to an awareness of oneness. And we know it's true, but we don't quite grok it yet, but we're practicing it. We're practicing how to grok that.
We might have to explain to some people. I know what you're talking about, grokking, but
Robert Heinlein. Yes,
from Stranger in a Strange Land.
That's science fiction, and it's a wonderful word because it's just this innate understanding where you get it completely throughout your being. You grok it.
That whole book. That book, when I read that book, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I understand this. And all the others, the people talking to me, no, I don't understand you, but this I understand.
Yeah, it's a great word. It's a great concept.
I want to do something fun for a moment.
Yay.
Because we're about the same age, and we grew up in the 60s. Talk about how you see the 60s, the music, the concepts, the revolution that went on, the ideas, because we've shared a little. We both appreciate that time. So tell me your view of it.
I feel like the 60s were a starseed celebration and convocation, where there are crystal babies, indigo children, etc., but we were the starseeds. And so that's a generation that was becoming aware of galactic origins, as well as expressing through music and through poetry and all sorts of creative ways of communication.
All the arts.
Yeah. We were expressing both solutions and dissatisfactions. It was a time of dropping out and tuning in whatever way you felt. Some people marched. Some people just, for me, I was creating art. So I was in college, and that's what I was doing. And my parents were very clear that if I got on a bus to go to Selma, I would not be getting a college education anymore, which is very smart of them. They were very concerned. But so I did go to, for instance, I remember going to see Iron Butterfly, and then Bob Dylan with the band in Edwardsville at the University of Illinois, sitting on the hillside with all of these other, wonderful beings in the 60s. And we knew, and it's interesting because that was when there was a conjunction of Uranus and Saturn, I believe, and so that kicked off then. That came into the last quarter just a few years ago. So that's from the new moon, which is when those planets got together and the 60s just blossomed. Flower children, all of the things that happened, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and then now looking at the last quarter, going back to the lunar analogy, the last quarter it's the reverse half moon during the waning part of the cycle, where in the planting cycle, whatever has grown begins to wither and head back to the ground of consciousness that originally produced it. And you look at that consciousness that originally produced it in the 60s, and you have an opportunity to see, am I in alignment with that attitude? I think of the Pointer Sisters, Get a New Attitude song. And you have an opportunity to realign your attitude, to look at what attitude would be commensurate with the creation of what we saw needed to change then. We knew things needed to change, but we were young. We didn't really have a plan. We were more interested in some ways in dropping out rather than actually becoming the senators, the this, the that, although I think there are some that sprang out of that. But it was a time of incredible possibility, of feeling like anything is possible. And because of Uranus involvement, it was a time of grand awakening. Huge awakening. And then, of course, life intervened. People had children, had to get jobs, et cetera, et cetera. But the soundtrack of our lives is still there to be played at any time that we want it. And I don't. Some of this was never more relevant than it is now.
Oh,
when
my
you listen to
goodness.
those, you know,
Right.
And the people that were the starseeds with us that shone so brightly, some that may not be here anymore, but the imprint that they left, the light that they just beamed forth was huge. It was like
John Lennon.
lasers. Yes. I mean, imagine just that song alone.
Right.
You know, making that a mantra. You know, imagine there's no countries.
Right.
Just so right, you know, he blew the vision, visionary possibilities wide open, and there were many who did that in that time, and we all were doing it in our own way. And also something that was really great was community. There were communes at that time. We saw how these radical children, individuals, which is what we were, could come together in community, all of us being very different in the way we expressed it, but knowing that love was the answer. We knew that. And I remember the song Inagata Davida.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And how do we get back to the garden? And it's about consciousness. It's like we are in the garden. All of us, we are in the garden. We never left the garden. But if the consciousness, it's about a consciousness of being in that incredibly creative Garden of Eden. We live there. It's the abundance of our consciousness. And that was seeded big time in the 60s. There were people in the 20s and the 30s, you know, Annie Besant, Madame Blavatsky, different theosophical, different movements that planted seeds. Edgar Cayce that planted seeds for a lot of what we saw. And I know that's an esoteric, I'm naming esoteric people, but there were many in many fields that planted the seeds for this starseed generation to just blossom.
Do you know I had a instinct to go buy Blavatsky's Ponder This. No, Alice Bailey's
Yes.
Ponder This. And I'm sitting there one day and I just, oops. That really echoed. Okay. And I'm sitting there one day and I open the book and it's talking about the different initiations. This is very esoteric, but different initiations that we were being asked to go to get ready for this time. And one of the things she said, and if we do this, the major time will be 2025.
Wow.
And here we are.
And it's a 9. So 2025 is a beginning, a fresh start with these planets just, sticking their toe in the water of these new positions, and an ending as they back up. That 9, that ending. And that's our challenge, is to how radical are the endings that we're affecting, and how can we do it in a way that holds the safety and happiness of everyone with the highest vision. How, you know, and Alice Bailey was amazing. She put so many things forth, you know, and we find now there are many, many, many people who have alluded to 2025, going way, way, way back. That this, you know, we are in this pivotal time, and it's a time. I knew it was coming. My whole life I've known it was coming, but I didn't know if I'd live to see it. You know, even though I thought I would definitely live to 2025, I didn't know, you know, if that timing was actually that accurate. But knowing the language of astrology, I see it. And so really, I encourage everyone to spend time feeling every day, even if it's just 2 or 3 minutes, feel what it feels like to live and walk in the world that is your highest vision. Because feelings create, that it's a frequency that literally goes out and creates a world. So it's one of the best things we can do. Well, some people might say, well, that's very Pollyanna. It's like, yeah, well, that's responsibility. That's me being able to respond to the kind of world that I feel can come into being. I've felt my whole life that we could experience a world without war. What does it hurt for me to carry that? Don't tell me I can't carry that's foolish or the world's never going to be that way. Well, why not?
I've been hearing from channels and astrologers that the war consciousness is leaving.
Yeah.
And that's part of what's happening.
Yes.
You know? And the negativity, well, I don't even know if I want to call it that. It's the old thinking that's trying to hold on. That's been around a very long time. But I've also heard, and I believe this is true, that it doesn't have the power it had before. It had much more power to velocity, power, frequency in a more negative level to keep us in that consciousness, and it's going.
Well, that was power over. And it was plugged into the systems. So if you look back at the time when Pluto was in Sagittarius, and then Saturn more recently was in Sagittarius, and we looked at our beliefs. Sagittarius is about your belief systems and what's true for you. Then you move to Capricorn, and in Capricorn, those belief systems become structures. And they become, sometimes in the negative sense, or the one side of the coin, they become a need for control, authoritarian systems. Mediaries, you have to go through the boss or the CEO to get to the higher ups or God or whatever the concept is. Then I moved into Aquarius. And Saturn in Aquarius, it rules Aquarius and Capricorn. But in Aquarius, it's how do we open up those structures to make structures that work to deliver power to the people. So that's what we're looking at now. And we will see it, especially once Saturn takes 2.5 years. Then it went through Pisces. It'll back up into Pisces, then go forward into Aries. And then it'll move forward into Taurus, and it's 2.5 year transit, so it's not as long as these outer planet transits. But it changes the structure, the strategy of our lives, and with Pluto and Aquarius of power. So giving up the reins of power, asking the powers that be, quote unquote, or have been. It's really as though we're all waking up from a long hallucinatory sleep where we gave our power away, thinking that and in a way it was true, to survive, because we thought that our good came from out there, not realizing that, oh no, I created all that? Oh. So we are in a time of incredible, radical, speedy awakening. And all the paradigms are being busted through. We're creating new ones. And we are being told to slow down, to speed up. Because everything is speeding up tremendously. So it's how do we navigate? How do we chop wood, carry water every day? How do we balance spiritual, mental, emotional with the physical world? And these are everything that I have said is represented in the sky right now. It's amazing the way the universe is mirroring exactly the consciousness we're being asked to rise to. It's like a smorgasbord. Do you want to go here? Do you want to go there? Because the nodal axis in Pisces and Virgo, which is destiny, Pisces being forward motion, future, Virgo being past, comfort couch, patterns to release, says Virgo rules physical health. But it reminds us that Pisces is where we're going, which is about spirit, vibrational medicine, our immune systems, our emotion, our lymphatic system, letting go of obsession, worry, analysis paralysis, not knowing what the important details are, and knowing that our health regardless of which side of that axis you're on, has to be a priority now. The health of us individually, physically, the health of our food, the health of the planet, health, healthy relationships, healthy business, aligned. So it starts with, what are your values? Get really, really clear on what you value. Is money your highest value? I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying we need to ask ourselves these questions. And then align yourself with your values and see how your life soars. Because when you're aligned, it will. And we're in this, it's such an exciting time to be alive. Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's been really fun. I'm just so into it. Tell people, I don't know, what do you want to say to people right now in wrapping this all up? It's an extraordinary time.
Feel the earth under your feet. Know that the soles of your feet are called the soles of your feet for a reason, as they connect to the earth. Bring that prana up. Breath is a gift. You don't last very long on the planet without it. So to live fully, you got to breathe fully. Bring that breath all the way up into every cell, and then drop from your crown, down through your face, your neck, your chest, and come into your heart. Start to breathe in and out of your heart, and then just sit and look at what your world looks like from that place. Allow yourself to spread green and rose rays where you just love yourself to the max. Just honor your fabulosity. You're a spark of all that is. We are so much more than we have any idea. We've been put in these little bitty avatar bodies, which are a gift, wonderful, but learn, meditate, do whatever you need to do to move through and beyond the fear, the illusion of death. Because then your creativity to create a loving, heart-centered world can soar, because you will realize that there is no such thing. There's just infinite consciousness, and that's the most valuable thing you have, is your consciousness. So don't let anyone take that from you. Remove the baggage, unpack the baggage. It may be painful, but whatever's getting in your way from being in joy, accept yourself. Radical self-love from a really high, healthy perspective, because that will beam its way out into your whole environment, and you'll see your life change. Hillary, I don't really feel like we're here to change the world. I feel like that's a very patriarchal, controlling concept. But we can change our world and be the change that we want to see in our world, and let that radiate out.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my God, the power of this. It just blasted. Maybe we're lifted above the studio.
I know,
here.
we're levitated now. They can't see us, but we're 3 feet off the ground.
Yeah, I like that. Claudia, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
What stays with me from this conversation is Claudia's reminder that every step is an opportunity for the soles of our feet to touch the earth, and every breath a chance to sink into the heart. She has experienced rejection, loss, and reinvention, yet holds a strong belief we are not broken, we are growing. Claudia calls this her loving legacy, and it's a legacy of courage, creativity, and presence. Listening to her, I'm reminded that life isn't just about building a resume. It's about shaping a life that feels true. You can learn more about Claudia's work, including her lunar discovery readings and heart drop meditations, at moonpowerastrology.com. Thank you for listening to Driftwood Conversations. If these episodes resonate with you, please subscribe and share with friends.